Welcome to IAmFiveFifths. I'm your host, Ahmad Mansour.
I'm your co-host, Bill Thomason.
So today is our first edition of the IAmFiveFifths Forum, where we talk to Black men about a range of issues that's going on within self, society, and the world. We invite free-thinking Black men to share space for an unapologetic conversation about contemporary issues. We want to hear about their experiences as Black men without defaulting to some of the commonly held stereotypes, assumptions, and narratives. We'll be engaging these Black men from every angle of reality with the topic of fatherhood. And so first, I just want to welcome these brothers to IAmFiveFifths.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
So, Brother Bill, we got an exciting, this is our first one, man. And I know that you and I have really been excited about having this conversation about a topic that is really at the forefront of what it means, one aspect of what it means to be a Black man, and that is Black fatherhood. How are you feeling about that today?
Hey, Black. I mean, look, man, we got some together down Black men, man, that I feel bring in, each has a different voice around fatherhood. And you and I know, man, this is one of those things, man, that is just, it's one of those conversations all of us have at one point in our lives. So I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with these brothers today.
All right. So what do you think? How should we start this off, man? I know you had a question that you want to throw out there just as a way of getting warmed up to know who these brothers are.
Right. Well, look, hey, brother. So we're gonna do something a little unconventional, man. Anybody know me and Ahmad, man? Y'all know me and Ahmad don't run by the normal way of doing things, man. We contrarians at heart. So the first thing I said, instead of going around and everybody saying, "Hey, man, I went to this school. This is what I do. I'm big baller number one." I wanted everybody just to do a little something different, man. I want you to do two things. Tell us one thing about yourself that you feel you would want the world to know. And then secondly, say another thing about yourself that you believe people get wrong about you. So Ahmad, I'll let you lead the conversation around the horn to do that.
Anyone who wants, I love that, man. Anyone who wants to raise their hand first and just get it started, let's do it.
I'll go first. The first question was,
tell us something about yourself that you would want people to know about you, basically. Yep.
I would say at heart, I just want folks to know that, that I really do care about where we are, where we've been, and where we're going as a collective. I also want people to know that I really do make the effort spiritually to be present and be there to uplift and contribute to the well-being. I think what people get wrong about me is that I think some people might mistake instances where I'm like hyper-focused as being maybe a little aloof, but that's not it. I just like to stay focused and get things done and done well, and I think that's pretty much it.
Hey, and for the sake of the podcast, whenever we call on you, why don't everybody just give their full name so we'll know who's speaking?
My name just spoke, Armand Garrett.
Thanks, Armand. Appreciate that, brother.
You guys speak a little bit more up into the mic, just a little bit more too.
Okay, get a little close.
So we want to welcome Michael Penn to this conversation. How you doing, Michael?
Brothers, I'm doing good. I wish I had gotten the time right, but glad to be here with you all.
No, we're glad to have you here. So really, we just started, and Brother Bill just threw out a question. So we're just kind of going around the horn to get to know each other a bit more. You guys are spread out throughout the country and the world. And so we love that. And this is just a real quick moment for everyone just to introduce themselves through Bill's unique question that he put out there. Anyone wants to, first, maybe Bill, you want to reiterate that so that Mike will know what that is, and then we can continue to go around the horn here.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, good to see you, brother. Good to see you, man. So we're asking everybody to just give one thing about themselves they will want people to know. And then the second question is, tell us something about yourself that people get wrong about you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take
All right.
the next
Anyone
one.
else want to? Go ahead, Kevin.
So yeah, my name is Kevin Owens. I'm out of Michigan here currently, and I would say the number one thing about me that I feel I have is what I would say is a Southern charm. Born and raised in Texas, very easygoing. I get along with just about anybody and everybody I meet. The flip side of that, in terms of what I think folks get wrong about me, is that maybe they can take a little bit of advantage of me. So, but until you get to know me and you understand who I am, I think that goes away.
And that brother cook a mean jambalaya and gumbo. Let's not forget that.
Etouffee.
Etouffee, pineapple upside down cake, where they say, man, make you slap your mama. That's so good.
Oh, man.
Who's next?
I'll go next. So welcome, brothers. Herman Few. I'm in Los Angeles area. And I have to say that probably the number one thing I would want the world to know about me is I have given it my absolute best to try to raise my kids and to take care of my mother before she passed. Regardless of what mistakes you think I may have made, they were honest, hardcore. I gave it my best, and I'm still giving it my best. Mm-hmm. I think something I would like the world to know where they get it wrong. I'm kind of a big guy. I'm 6'5", close to 240, bald-headed, but I'm not an angry Black man. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm really a very peaceful young man. Even though I'm 55, I still say young man.
I love it. I love it.
But that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Right.
Love being here.
Brother Herm.
Right on.
Glad to have you here, brother.
I'll go next. So I guess what I would want people of the world to know is that I am fiercely dedicated to my spiritual growth. That is like my number one kind of organizing principle. I'm in the Bay Area, so I live in Emeryville, which is between Oakland and Berkeley. And things that people get wrong. So, I'm a bit of an overachiever, I suspect, like a lot of the brothers on this call. But what people get wrong about me is, I get insecure and I experience self-doubt and all these things. And often when people look at the surface, all they see are the letters behind my name and all that stuff. And, that has definitely been isolating, I would say, to some degree. So what people often get wrong is that I'm human, basically.
All right. And Mike, make sure we give your name, man, so people know.
Oh, sorry, Michael Penn. Yeah.
Great. No problem. No problem. Thank you, man.
I think I'm last. My name is Barra McSwain. Excited to hear about this panel. You guys are a great group. I would say the number one thing that I would want the world to know about me is ambition. Ambition and greed for love, for growth, for business, for money, for everything, for life. I love life. I want it all. I get a little over my skis, but man, it's good stuff. I think what people might get wrong a little bit with me is that compassion doesn't always come with that, right? Or they think that if I'm ambitious for all those other things that the love that I have for my community, my folks doesn't necessarily go in hand, but it does.
Right on.
Thanks, B-Bag.
Right on.
Yep.
Thanks.
Brother
Thanks,
John.
So I am out of the Bay Area, Oakland, via the Deep South, and now to South America. So I'm here in South America right now. What I like people to know about me is basically I'm an explorer, information junkie. I'm always loving to read and to learn. And what I like most is listening to other people's experiences. What people get wrong is, how do I describe it? So there's a lot of people that are getting a crowd and they feel like they have to say something, otherwise people would think they're stupid. And I don't do that. It was says fools talk because they have to, and smart people talk because they have something to say. So people may take, oh, this person is quiet, but I feel no need to jump out and say anything to prove that I have to say.
Good stuff.
Thank you,
man.
brother.
Good stuff.
So this is interesting because we have such a range of people, not only from around the world, but from different walks of life, different types of experiences with how they have raised their kids and been in their kids' life. So given all of that, since this is about fatherhood, if we can, just from a very deep inspirational space and beyond, what exactly does fatherhood mean to you? How do you define it in the context of your own life?
I'll take that first. I think for me, I define it by what my mom taught me, and I think what I'm certain her mom taught her. She would always say, I don't get up and go to work for anyone. I don't work for no one. I work for my kids. And I've always carried that notion within me that, there was always putting the children first, making sure that, that responsibility was never overshadowed by, maybe personal needs or wants. So I've always been guided by that principle of always making sure that I understood every time I get up and go out, what I'm doing this for and who I'm doing it for. So for me, it's always been a motivating factor having children.
Right. What about you, Kevin?
That's a great question. I think for me, there's no perfect definition of what fatherhood is to me. I think it's no different than us on this call here as human beings. When you wake up, you don't know what you're going to face. And when I was, first, given that opportunity to be a father to my kid, my world flipped around in terms of it's not about me anymore. It's about that kid and what I can do to raise that kid to be who he or she wants to be. And I got two boys, so it's more he. But yeah, it's just it's a day-to-day grind. I think it's indefinite. As long as I'm breathing, as long as those kids are breathing, I'm a father. There's a fleshly father in terms of anybody can make a baby, relatively speaking. And there's a spiritual side of it, the mental, the emotional. And that's what I focus on is that how do I be part of their lives emotionally, spiritually, and mentally? And that changes as they grow, as we grow, because we change every day, they change every day, and how you adapt to that. So one fatherhood for you and others on this call is not the same for the next person sitting next to you. It's all different. It's how you adapt. And truly, that's what the definition of fatherhood is to me, is how you adapt.
Sorry.
Go chime in. Go for
it. Is it my turn? Am I talking? Okay. To me, I think the Irish has been about stewardship. And then basically to stay out of the way. I don't want to transfer, I've never wanted to transfer my fears and my biases onto my child. I wanted to do is just let her explore who she wanted to be, support her, and basically kind of get out of the way. We have a very, very close relationship. I can also say that in many ways we're closer than her mom. Maybe you have a different with your father than you do your mother. But we're very close, and we've been close, for a long, since the beginning. I cut her cord, the doctor wrapped her up and gave her to me, and then she stopped crying. Home, early part of her childhood. So when she was a baby, I got a chance to be around her. And so even to this day, we're still close, and she'll call me up. She calls me her guru. And she was so excited that she had a menstrual cycle. I'm like, whoa, I don't know. This may be something. She was telling me, that her and her cousin, she has a cousin around her same age, and they're who would have like, oh, okay. So that was like, wow, that we're really, really close in that regard. So
John,
but stewardship is the main thing.
John, this made me think. Ahmad have been rapping about this. I know we got some brothers on the call that are married and in stable relationships, and I know some brothers on the call that might not be still connected to the mother of their child. I just want to know if anybody want to give any thoughts around that when you're being in the home with your child constantly versus, you only get to see your child a certain period of time. Anybody want to chime in? Feel free.
I've been both. Early part of my childhood up until about 6, we were in the same out of state. So that was a whole traveling back and forth thing. And you can stay in your child's life. My situation, if you've never been at that base, it may be a little different, but we had that base up until age 6 to stay on age 12. And so she's been coming back and forth. And so I can speak to, I think having that base may be a little different than having that foundation and then having a separation than someone that's never been. She's quite different because you missed out on certain things, and no one ever thinks about. They can always think about the mother. No one ever thinks about all the things like her first tennis match. I played tennis, USTA junior circuit player, and then she played in high from first match, and I felt like I was missing out. So it's a little different, but a lot of people, they're intact relationships, and that's completely different as well.
Thank you, man.
Kevin, you were going to say something?
Few, it's interesting because I know one of the things that I call Herman Few. So just a little FYI there. So Few, it's interesting because when I hear John talking about, his daughter coming to him about her start of her menstrual cycle, I think that's something that you can attest to as well. So if you can, just kind of speak about fatherhood in the context of what it means to you, but also bringing whatever, just bringing that aspect in as a father.
Absolutely. So, for me, I really embraced fatherhood. I felt like I became a father later in life. My daughter was born, I was 38. And I had gotten married about 28. So I was in my marriage for almost 10 years before my daughter was born. Me and my wife were trying to have a child, and it began to look like it just wasn't going to happen. So we even looked at the potential of adoption. So when my daughter finally came and got here, I felt like it was, for me, a new beginning, a blessing, just a tremendous blessing. And I really took to it. I really embraced it. And unfortunately, I'll just make this quick, but unfortunately, I think the birth of my son, which was 4 years after my daughter was born, was the beginning of not the beginning, but was the final straw in our marriage. So as wonderful as the kids were, I think that just between me and their mother, we just could no longer coexist. So that created a whole nother situation for me. A whole different life. And I won't even begin to go into all that. But I will address Ahmad's question with respect to what a father means to me. I feel like it's the biggest blessing. And I was able to, I didn't think I was going to be perfect, but I was at a point, I was mature enough to know the importance And I just made a commitment that I'm gonna do everything I possibly can do to get this right, you know. And I just embraced it, you know. I listened to John when he speaks about his relationship with his daughter. They're very similar to me and my relationship with my daughter. We're very, very close. And in fact, I remember my daughter was 12, and right up until right before that, I thought about, well, you know, she's going to be having her cycle here pretty soon. And prior to that happening, I was like, I didn't really know how I felt about having to deal with it. But I began to realize that we were so close that I almost wanted her to have that experience. I wanted to be there when she had that experience, even though I wasn't a woman, and to some degree I was afraid of it, but I wanted to be able to reassure her that it was going to be okay. And I shuddered to think that she would have that experience and I wasn't around to communicate with her and make sure emotionally and psychologically that she was okay. And, you know, traditionally we think that's the mother's role, you know, and the mother's going to handle that. And I think in most cases that will be the case. But in my situation, there was such a disconnection between the mother and my daughter that physically she could help her, but mentally and emotionally, I know she couldn't have. So to make it quick, it did occur when she was with me. And I just remember telling her that it's nothing to be afraid of. And she kind of was like, well, Dad, I really don't want to do that. I don't want this to happen. And I said, well, no, actually you do, because that means you're okay. If it didn't happen, that would be a problem. But I just, that incident just really solidified to me that, man, we as fathers, we can do whatever we need to do for our kids. And we got to step up in areas that we didn't anticipate, we can get it done. So fatherhood means, because the challenge that I've had to stay in my kids' life, it's become a calling. I mean, I work as a fatherhood specialist. I work with men on this, so.
Thank you. So I want to follow up with this and just kind of put a little twist to it. You know, as you know, the media really conveys, or should I say, they don't necessarily convey our images as in a positive light as Black fathers. Do you feel that socially, or you know, through the media and other influences, that the kind of the zeitgeist has an impact on you as a Black father, or do you perceive that the world perceive you different as a Black male and as a father? Anyone?
I'll answer that. I think it does to a certain degree.
Well, quickly, I do think people. I'm sorry.
You know, I think that, I mean, it kind of, you're all, I mean, it's hard not to be Black in America, right? And so I just from an interaction standpoint, and I made a point to attend every single field trip, you know, for my girl, for Sky, same with AJ, and insert myself in PTA and the parents and the teachers, and kind of be very present, you know, partly for that reason, right? I mean, obviously I have my own reason for the care of my child, but also to kind of challenge that stereotype to a large degree and be involved. And I think Kevin and John had some really good points about, meaning the fatherhood. I agree with Kevin in terms of being fluid, right? It's a moving object, at least for me. I think when I first started, and to John's point of getting out of the way, right? I think beginning of my fatherhood started a little bit later. I adopted my kids at a little bit older age, but I think as a Black man, you have projections on what you think your kids should do in this society. You project things from your side. And I think it took me a while. I learned more about being a father by stepping away and listening to my kids and what they need and their trajectory, as opposed to imposing my own thoughts on what a father should or should not do, or what they should accomplish, right? So I like a lot of what you guys are saying, because it kind of underlines how important you have to be there, but also have some self-reflection, that you leave the ego at the door a bit. And that took me 2-3 years to learn that.
Yeah.
That wasn't overnight, right?
Right.
Bear,
Yeah,
man, I'm gonna say I had the honor of meeting your father, man. So you had a phenomenal role model, man, because man, like they don't make them like that no more.
No,
And,
no.
And man, was like tops of the top, man. And so you had a phenomenal role model to get you set, man. So, big props to your father, man. Giving your father some love right now.
Oh yeah. And
Bill, I think that's a great point, Bill, in terms of what you just said, because we as men, or we as people, we're raised by who we're raised by, right? Whether you have a father in the house or you do not have a father in the house. And when you become a father, a lot of who we are and how we're shaped kind of drives us and motivates us to say, hey, do you want to be like that dad that wasn't there for their kid? And it motivates you to do more. And there's a little bit of pressure there. I agree with you in terms of the social media and things of that nature in terms of Black fathers, but also just your upbringing. And how do you make it a better time or a better opportunity for your kids when you raise them? And I think, we got to create that balance, to not stress ourselves, to be at every event, example, and kind of funny, but if my kid plays sports and he's sitting the bench, yeah, I'll be there every game, but some games I may not, if I got something else to do that's providing for him, and you just sitting the bench and not playing, let's just be honest with one another. You got to communicate to your kid and say, hey, here's some motivation for you to, play better, work harder, do whatever it has to be, or pick another sport. I don't know. I'll come to the games when you start playing. Now I'm being funny, but at the same time, you got to put things in perspective, as I said earlier, in terms of adapting, communicating, understand what does it really mean? Me being there for you every single day, when truly, is it value added? Could I be doing something else that would do something for you later in life? So yeah, it's just so many points so much discussion you can kind of drive.
Well, Kevin, that's a great point, because I from what I hear when I speak to a lot of Black men, who are fathers, the question becomes, how much does, their past, whether they grew up in a single parent family, or, one of their parents who wasn't as present, whether it's the mom or dad, how much does that play into, there's some people just that will take those experiences and feel like they need to become a super dad. There's others who, feel like that the experience of having children is almost a form of their own therapy. So, how, just to pick up on your question, I mean, if you can, if someone can just kind of describe, how did their family experience really shape their fatherhood? And I know, Armand, you had mentioned that before, but I just want to see if I can grab one more person to speak on that.
So I'd love to just, because, so I grew up both parents in the household, but my mom was very much an authoritarian. And so she really basically disrespected my dad continuously, and he accepted it. And so I'll never forget when I realized that my wife, Jocelyn, was pregnant with a boy. I mean, I can't tell you how much fear I had in that moment, because I didn't know whether I was going to be able to support a son to grow up, right? And so that was really scary. And in terms of what fatherhood means to me, I mean, being a father it's a miracle. I mean, it is, I'm in the Bay Area, so I definitely lean, what does my brother say? Granola, spiritually granola, if you will. But I believe, in this idea of, our thoughts create our reality. And when I think about, the thought of having a kid, and then I look at and witness my son, I have a son and a daughter. I mean, like, right? He just started as a thought in both of our minds. And here is this being, right, that is now autonomous, right? Like he's got his own personality. He's 11, and I've got a little girl who's 9. You know, and then the other piece that I do want to just amplify, you know, John's point around stewardship. I mean, I believe that those souls came down and chose me and Jocelyn, right, to steward their experience on this earth. And so I view it as a tremendous privilege and responsibility. And I mean, it's funny, I often remind myself that it's as much about learning from my kids as it is me teaching them. And I have learned so much from them. It's just a gift, man. It really is.
That's right.
Thank you.
I want to highlight
Yeah.
on little kids and going back to what Kevin said, that you have to evolve as your kid evolves. Until you think one thing and then your kid change and now you have to adjust. There's a lot of information involved and do is that as your kids go through these stages, because once you think you got it right, okay, they changed and now you have to shift.
That's right. And your foundation has to be there, right? No different than this pandemic we're going through. How do you pivot? How do you adjust and adapt? And if you can adapt as a parent, your kids can adapt along with you.
My experience is a little bit different in that I started parenthood at a very young age. I was 18 when my first son was born, and I had no blueprint. My father at the time had divorced my mother, so I was, you know, I don't want to go down too dark of a path, but anyway, point being is that you know, there was not really that playbook available to me in terms of how to, you know, do this right, if you will. So a lot of it was just trial by error, learning, you know, kind of as I went along. But you know, I have 4 children, ranging in age. The youngest is 20, the eldest is 39. And between the youngest and between my youngest son and my youngest daughter, there's a 10-year gap. I always think when I first started out, I knew nothing about being a parent. I was just simply motivated for doing the right thing. It was part of my family upbringing. You took care of your responsibility. You did the right thing. So when my first son was born, it was a huge struggle trying to figure out how to be a good dad, other than just getting a job and paying the bills, but in trying to transfer something onto him that I felt he could work with as he was growing up. It was a little difficult because I didn't have much to work with myself. So by the time my first daughter was born, I was in my mid-20s. And at that time, I was very excited about being a father of a daughter, you know, father of my first daughter, and having gone through, you know, that experience. And then some 3 years later, I had my second daughter. And then, of course, 9 years later, my second son. Incrementally, in between each of those children, I felt like it was a learning experience. I felt like from the first one, I stumbled, I made a lot of mistakes, but I promised myself I wouldn't, you know, transfer those on to my daughter. I would learn and I would apply that knowledge. I struggled with my first daughter. I didn't really have it all that well together, but by the time my second daughter came along, I had a little bit better. You know, I was definitely a lot more effective. And then certainly, you know, by the time my youngest son came along, I felt like I really had this thing called fatherhood down. I understood it enough to be as effective as I could possibly be. And I think for me, it was just, you know, trial and error, learning through, you know, experiences, good and bad. Trying to apply like some of what John was saying earlier about, you know, you get to a certain point where you want to impart as much as you can to help your children grow. I think by the time they're 3 years old, if you don't have a really solid relationship with them, it's kind of difficult, really, that and beyond that. So being there, being present, I dealt with the divorce, I dealt with the separations and the anxieties that come with it, and dealt with that even between the 3rd and 4th child. Actually dealt with it between the 1st and 2nd child and the 3rd and 4th child. So long story short is that it was a learning process. I felt, what guided me, of course, was the principles that I learned from, my mother and my grandmother, because they are effectively the ones that kind of raised me. Yeah, I really do feel like, I'm still learning, even at this point. My youngest son is dealing with some issues at 20 that, are, challenges that, I didn't have to deal with my oldest son when he was the same age. So it's, it's still a learning process. It's continuous, but being there, being present, being willing and wanting to learn and grow is what's sustained me for the last 39 years. I've been a father, ironically, longer. I'm 58. I've been a father for 39 years. So this is all I've known. The daily rhythm. This is all I know.
You should have the title, man. You should start calling you Father Armand, man. That's like 3/4 of your life, brother.
I would for some reason, I think I would get defrocked.
Hey, so
I appreciate
so Bill,
the notion. But anyway, that's it.
Well, I know, Dollar Bill, you're going to want to follow up this question I'm going to throw out here. So I want to put this out because, and it's around income and employability and how that kind of plays into family life and raising kids. We all go through ups and downs in our employment. We all have to find ways to make a living. How has income, employability played into how one defines value as a father and as a caregiver?
That will make you think, don't it? That make you think.
I mean, I guess I'll start. I'll start by saying, my mom was the primary income in our household, and when my son was born, so he was born with a genetic abnormality that required surgery. He spent the first 10 days of his life in the NICU. And it became clear that my wife continuing her job just was not going to work, and my vision, at least, of being married was 2 incomes, power, all the stereotypical stuff. And, it's like, that's one thing, the father, it blows up all your ideas about whatever you thought life was about, at least for me. And so that transition to like single income, right, is all on me, was hard, particularly when I lost a job, right? Like I was asked to leave a job, and that devastated me because at the time, my notion of what it meant to be a father was to be that provider. And I probably put extra on it, right? Because my dad wasn't, a primary income. And so like I had to work through some serious mental health stuff and get on the other side of it to sort of, I think, recognize, that it's like, yes, it's about that. And it's about a lot more than that.
Great. Thank you.
Man, I gotta tell you, I know that's a deep one.
Yeah.
Let me throw.
Let Jeter.
Oh, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Well, okay. Yeah, my family background, my father was there and I grew up in an intact family. He passed away when I was 9, but I had that huge extended family. So I saw all the men, most of the couples in my family were together. So I saw intact families. And so, of course, especially being in the South, you're seeing men with various roles. You're seeing men with breadwinners, but they're also doing other roles out of necessity. That nurturing helped me. But when I got older and actually going through the divorce, I thought I was forced to make a choice. because I'd grown up. I mean, I was home thinking, well, I don't get to see my child every night. And so I felt like it was a choice. Do I want to stay in her life? Do I want to just go out and earn as much as I can and provide money? And toward being in her life and seeing her. So I basically stopped I had a career in advertising. I basically stopped that. I started taking evening jobs, weekend jobs, just so I could see her in the middle of the day. And it was a sacrifice that I made, and I was trying to, mitigate that by doing other things. But it does have an effect. And I think I eventually made the right choice, because everything that she's asked for, she's intended for, really been financial. And so even though I did have to pay, and that we get into the courts, that's a whole nother area. And then, being a non-custodial parent but you do have to make sort of a choice. And I see men on their deathbed that earned a lot of money. And to a man, everyone said I should have spent more time with my family. And I missed out on so many things in my kids.
Great. Thank you. Anyone want to follow up with that before I hand it over to Dollar Bill? I know he has a follow-up question.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that real quick. So for me, I truly had to make a decision, because when my relationship broke up, I think my ex-wife and even the system was kind of like, what we'd like for you to do is just send a check, support that way, and give it all, and give the raising over to the mother, and I wasn't okay with that. And not to mention my situation was very complicated because my kids were taken from the Bay Area to Los Angeles. So essentially what had to happen was I had to make enough money to pay child support and to survive. But for me to really develop my career, if I would have went that direction, I wouldn't have been able to keep the relationship with my kids. And that meant I didn't miss, and I don't like to use the word visitation because I don't believe you visit your kids. So I refer to it as custodial time. If they're with me, it's my custodial time. If they're with the mother, it's her custodial time. I don't visit my kids, but for me to not miss any of my custodial time ever, no matter what the circumstances were, it had a major effect on my professional career. So I left a lot of money on the table, a lot of job opportunities. I had a career in education that I wasn't able to expand upon. I was an entrepreneur that I really wasn't able to expand upon. I had to put all that aside, and but consequently, I was able to have a fabulous, and I currently do, a wonderful relationship with my kids. And if I had to do it over again, I would do it this way. But financially, it has cost me an unbelievable amount of money. And I don't think we as men, as fathers, should have to make that decision. I think you should be able to do both. But I know, and this is another conversation, but I know systemically the system is not really set up for us to do both. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I like to focus and help make a change where men can be involved in their kids' lives, but still be the individual men that they need to be, which the kids benefit from anyways. Because some of the choices I had to make, my kids miss out on some of the financial stuff that I would have had. I don't have to give them. So it ain't just me, but it's their loss too.
Before I hand it over to thank you, Herman. Before I hand it over to Brother Bill to follow up, I just want to say about Herman, because we're gonna have to invite this brother on separately and just do a story with him, just on his epic story. That's pretty incredible. Literally, it's incredible. I've been trying to get that brother to write a book on it. But one of the things about Herman is that as I knew him, he was literally commuting every week from the Bay Area down to Los Angeles, so that he maintained that relationship and that there was just no gap there. And so I know I literally saw the impact of that on his career, because his background is in sports psychology. Anyway, Bill, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry for hogging up that time. I just wanted to get that in.
Man, you know, as you can see, this is one of these forums, Ahmad, that we could be on here for hours, because there's so much to cover. And the one thing, I actually did have a financial question, but I don't know if I'm gonna open up a can of worms here, but I'm gonna say it, you know, because I've always felt that the court systems were against Black fathers, you know, and, you know, I'm a product of a single parent home where my father wasn't around, but I had, you know, grandfather and uncles who stepped up. You know, I'm opening up a can of worms. Does anybody want to talk about the court systems and how they were treated without, you know, without, oh, here we go. All right, I'm going on mute. Here we go. Here come the worms.
Yes.
John,
I want to quickly go and then get out of the way, because my story, I know a few stories. It's a book. It's really, I'm familiar with that story. But the only thing I say is about the courts is it's regressive. The laws are outdated, and it's not the no distinguishing. I was a guy. I cut the cord. I was with her. I grew up with her. Took care of her. I was in her life. But the courts make no distinction between that and some guy that got a girl pregnant in the backseat of a car outside of a club and wants. And it's designed for chasing apathy and not supporting the millions of men that are fighting to get in their kids' lives. There's no one. It's an invisible fight, because everyone gets so. It's so to finger in somewhere doing something bad, or bad Black men somewhere who's effing up, and the men that are actually want to be fathers get no support at all.
That's a good starter there, brother Armand.
Wow, yeah, the court systems are ruthless, man, and I mean unrelenting and just insensitive to the whole notion of family in general. It's ironic that they call themselves family courts. My experience has been, yeah, I've been dogged and chased and license suspensions and, you know, accounts picked through and you name it. But having said all that, it's very temporal, that whole process. I mean, you know, like I said, I've been parenting for 30-something years, and I've only had that experience really with 2 of the children. And that experience, I mean, while I was immersed in it at the time, it was the worst thing imaginable. But time went by and I paid the bills, and, you know, and then, you know, everything settled itself. And long story short, it didn't really have any impact on my relationship with my children. It may have stressed out my relationship with their mother, but no direct impact with children whatsoever. I wouldn't allow it. So I guess what I'm trying to do is, you know, impart a little bit of advice in terms of how to deal with that specific issue. And that is, you know, patience is the only way to get through it. You know, I think that's what worked for me, just patience and you know, you got to go through it. If there was a way to change the system, I would do it overnight. But, you know, you got to kind of play the game the way the game is set up to be played.
So
the daggers.
Yeah. So Bera, BMAC. I call Bera BMAC, by the way. The cats don't know. So you had a different situation. You've but you did have to engage the court system and I guess kind of the bureaucracy of agencies, you know, for adoption. How arduous was that process, and how much did it impact you in terms of just your own sense of well-being? And I'm throwing this to you, but I actually, as a follow-up, to those others that had to interact with the court system, what was the impact on your own kind of like well-being and mental health? But go ahead, B-Mac.
That's a good question. You know, adopting my two kids was a tough endeavor as well. We were kind of stepping in a situation that was existing, was not healthy, and basically coming in and being parents. I think it's a little different from most scenarios, but I think to Armand's point, it just really, you have to drive hard to connect with the kid outside of the court scenario, right? The court is very, very, very tough, and it's not strategic on the best interest of the children. It's usually a lot of drama between the adults, if you will, right? So you just have to really drill down. I mean, it sounds simple, but you have to connect with the kids outside of the court, connect with them, and just kind of tackle them, let them know that that this is not the end result, and that you want them. To Herman's point, I think Herman makes a great point. Like, he's made huge sacrifices, and kids need to know that, right? You gotta let them know that you're pretty much 100% committed. To Bill's point before, like with my pops, man, I got lucky, man. He was 100% in on me, right? He sat on my chest from day one to the end, and I needed that to do the same thing for my kid, right? It's easy to pay it forward when you got it, right? When you get some love, there's a lot to give back, and you leverage your relationships. I got lucky. I got a great partner. So I learned a lot how I treated my women in life through how my dad treated my mom. And I leverage that with my kids, saying, look, son, or whatever it is, you see how I treat your auntie or your mom. That gives me firepower when I talk to them about real subjects, real topics. I get off a little bit there, but that's all part of communication and leverage to express.
I think you hit that right on the head, man. I think, with all you guys, and I'm in a great situation with my spouse or with my wife where everything is stable, but I have friends who are going through the same exact things, you guys are going through. And as if you can write a book, where it stops right now with our generation, our kids on us, is like, here's what you can do to make this better, and kind of learn from those examples. You heard of preventative exams. It's the same thing. How do you prevent yourself from getting into this situation that you can do? Now, some things are uncontrollable and you got to deal with that, but you can knock off a majority of that if you just understand vetting your wife, vetting who you date, and then developing that relationship to not get into a situation where the wife is cuckoo and leave. It's all those things, man, right? And then how you balance that thing. So when you get those kids, how do you balance spending time with your kids, spending time with your wife? Because somebody's going to get cheated. And if the wife gets cheated, she's out. And now you're dealing with the court system again. Something as simple as that. So I think all those things need to be documented and kind of passed on. How do I teach my son how to pick a wife or a spouse or a friend or a relationship?
Kevin, would you also add to that? How do you teach your son or how to deal with the implications when things go wrong in a relationship?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to your foundation, the grace that God gives us. How do we give grace to the people that we interact with? And what's worth getting upset about? And what is worth just saying, you know what? Let it go. Pick your battles, pick your fights. I've been in situations, man, where I know if I had said one more thing, and this is before I was married, it's like, it could have gotten ugly. And it would have been something else where it's like, you know what? I'm gonna walk away from that. No different than me getting ready to, bump heads with another guy. And I know if I square up and start fighting, he has a gun on him. So do I want to do that? Absolutely not. You know what? It's not worth it. I walk away, and I'm healthy and I'm living. If I keep that fight going, I likely get shot and killed. And that's just an example as to how do you treat the people you date, and how do you, your marriage and all those things, and how do you keep things what buttons to push, what buttons not to push. So
that's
but it
high
comes to you.
emotional intelligence right there, you know.
You got it.
And I think that's something that I'm attempting to try to share with my sons, particularly.
Yeah,
because I think sometimes we kind of get prone, we get wrapped up in our negative emotions, and shit just spirals.
So,
go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was just saying what Kevin said. It was so funny what you just said about the confrontation. I was listening to a Navy SEAL, and the Navy, what's the best defense of a fight? The Navy SEAL said, if you can run, run.
Yeah, no, that's absolute. That's absolute. That's absolute.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's
it's such a great point, because actually that is you know, that's the basic principle of the known book, The Art of War. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, like, you know, if you can avoid that. But that, I think that's very interesting, because I think as Black men, let's be real about it. You know, we're all, you know, a lot of us were trained to, you know, from a mindset standpoint, to really confront anyone that we felt were being disrespectful to us, or or wanted to, you know, settle an argument, you know, through fisticuffs. I mean, you know, we were all born in different environments, but I think that's something that's been embedded into the culture. And what I'm hearing is that notion, that idea gets challenged when raising kids. That there's a different type of insight and perspective that comes into what do you hand down to your son or daughter around that.
That's right. And to add to that, I know of divorces and situations, and some of you guys may have this, where you see the ex-husband and ex-wife come together as if they're married. They're traveling together with their kids. And you know right there that during the marriage, things were done appropriately, where when it just didn't work out because of the right reason, they had to divorce, but yet they can still be in sync and kind of, you know, maintain the family, so to speak. But they keep that at moments. So yeah. That's
a very rare thing, and I'm privileged to be experiencing something similar to that.
Amen.
Yeah, but I think that's important. That's where you get both parents agreeing that it's not about me, it's about the children. You know,
you got it.
And it's you know, the challenge then becomes, you know, that goes back to your original point. You know, you got to pick the right one.
You got to vet it out.
Coin toss.
I guess the profits at the point where you buy, right?
Right. Family structure, what family she grew up in.
That's exactly right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think my point on all this, I think you guys have great points, is that whether a relationship works or doesn't work, I think as fathers and as Black men, if you can show an example of working that problem out, and let your kids see that, you know, every relationship is not perfect, right? I got lucky. My parents were married for 40 years, but I watched how they solve issues, right? There's lots of times you have to solve issues with your partner, your wife now, or your, you know, and I was privy to that, you know, so I'm approaching problems as solving, and I like to share that with my kids, because problems are going to come up. It's not just a fairy tale, and you've got to, I think kids learn by watching more than we tell them, right? If I tell my son AJ, hey man, I want you to kind of respect women, and here's your head, and he's like that, he's gonna be like, yeah, okay. But if I'm doing it and I'm showing him how to solve problems with my partner, or add value, or create love and happiness on all those coins, you know, he's picking that up, you know. Same with a girl, you know. Will it happen tomorrow? No, but that's something that I think kids need to see. As a father, you need to show them that, you know, it's not automatic.
You know, let me throw something in of mine, because I'm gonna tell you, man.
Not basically playing the dozens with your kid.
What was that, John?
Say that again, Jim.
I was saying about conflict is you never say anything bad. I never said anything bad about her mother. I kept the courts, to me, the courts, in my head, the court was, I walked in the court, the judge opened a folder. I'm like, this is all in a folder. This is just in a folder. And then talking about
high
just,
emotional intelligence.
well, this will be playing the dozens with your own kid.
You know, I want to take this on another spin. You know, we're having this conversation around Black men, Black fatherhood. I mean, this is what IAmFiveFifths is all about. It's about the Black male voice. The majority of us, I'm sure, know men of other races that have kids. What conversations are you having with your kids that you don't think your white, Asian, Latin, or Indian counterparts are having with theirs? And what conversations do you think it is important to the utmost to have with your kids? And I know on here some of you all might have mixed race kids. I'd love to just hear the thoughts around that.
I have biracial children, a biracial son. And, you know, I think with, you know, I try not too hard to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Project how I influence and try to raise him in comparison to some of his white counterparts. I mean, sometimes I find myself kind of falling into that trap, you know, because he'll come home and say, hey, Dad, you know, I just left so-and-so's house. You got to see it. I mean, I live in Marin County, and, you know, you know, when you're dealing with privilege and you're surrounded by that privilege, you know, it can be tricky to try to balance that out, you know. Things that his white friends, you know, are able and capable of doing, I don't have any real sense of whether or not he is able to, you know, follow in suit because he's half Black, you know, or half white. In the back of my mind, I'm still raising a Black son in a white environment. So, you know, it's a matter of, you know, for me, just making sure he's, you know, well aware of who he is, you know, and just self-confident and not, you know, having to be consumed by, you know, the keeping up with the Joneses, if you will. But yeah, it's challenging. It definitely is challenging, especially in this day and age. You know, everything's technical. You know, the internet and social media kind of, you know, impart their own set of challenges. You know, I'm not sure what kind of information he might be getting outside the home or beyond me that might be counter to what I'm trying to teach and practice. So there's a large degree of vigilance on my part, I think, you know, where I find myself, you know, sometimes, you know, it's subconscious, you know, I just kind of find myself checking our conversations, you know, making sure that he's aware that, you know, you Black, you know what I mean? And even though we're in this environment, you know, you Black.
Do you think that do you think that can be also be kind of your own bias that's coming in too?
Given the fact projecting like crazy, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. But again, that becomes a challenge, you know, that becomes a challenge because again, I have to count, you know, I feel like one of my main duties is to protect my children. You know, I just feel like that's something that I must do. And there's a lot of external influences in the environment, you know, it'll present a lot of challenges, you know, to trying to raise your children, you know, to be self-confident and then, you know, going on what John was saying earlier, you know, I find myself to be more of an authoritative approach where, you know, I don't want him to make stupid mistakes and I'm always checking him on that. But at the same time, I want him to be able to learn from his mistakes, you know. So I don't know, maybe that was a complicated way of saying that, you know, I'm aware of the fact that, you know, there's a racial component to how I'm, you know, and how I need to navigate that with my child being biracial. and keeping that in balance with the environment that he is and the expectations that that environment is placing on him.
So we have about 10 minutes left. So I think, Bill, that's such a great question. So I want to keep that. I want to hear some more answers or perspectives to that question. Such a great question. And then I have one more question after that before we'll start looking to kind of wrap this up. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Yeah.
Are we still on biracial kids, or kind of the challenges?
No, we're still there. It wasn't just about biracial. It's just what
Okay.
I think Bill kind of constructed. Is there anything that is different in terms of what you have to convey to your children versus other different racial or ethnic groups? Is that right, Bill?
Yeah, it's not just biracial. I'm just saying
it's not biracial, but
right.
Yeah.
But if your kid is biracial, I mean, I've had those conversations that how is the child viewed? If the father is Black and the mother is white, how is the child looked at? Is the child seen as being Black, or is the child seen as being white, or just biracial? I've heard the whole gamut. I mean, look, I did an ancestry.com. I found out I got way more white blood in me than I thought. So I'm like, whoa. So anyway.
I could have told you that, bro.
Well, hey man, Ancestry made it real clear.
Just confirmed our thoughts.
I'm playing with you, man. But go ahead, man. So I think Bill's question, I mean, like, there are a lot of things. I mean, one of the things that you often hear, is, it comes up at least in the media, because I think this is a narrative that we throw out there. And I don't necessarily know whether it's true or not, but that's what we put out there. You talk about the talk, so I mean, I think that's like something that would be considered the type of distinction that Bill is referring to. Just a wide range of things, but anyhow, I'll turn it back over.
John, where it came from, man, is like growing up in Detroit. I remember telling someone once, like, the conversations that my folks had with me around the police department was not the same conversations that my white, Asian, Latino, etc. counterparts had. Because in the Black community, the police were not seen as allies. Like, it was not like, if you in trouble, go call the police, they'll come and help you. Whereas a lot of my friends of other races, they always felt like, oh yeah, if we got in trouble, you go to call a policeman to come help you. And in Detroit, it was a lot of times it was the police causing the problem.
Right. Yep. So anyhow, go ahead, John. We'll let you guys expound.
I've had that talk with her. I've had that talk with my daughter, the police talk. It was a short talk. She's not male. And then she's biracial. But the one thing that we had is that culturally, her side of the family of immigrants, which actually grew up in a Black neighborhood, and mine was a neighborhood in San Francisco. So the thing was with me was she didn't grow up with my side of the family. She's more of an immigrant, and I told her to embrace that, because that's part of who she is. So I didn't want her to, I wanted her to embrace that because that's her family. Also didn't want her to be ashamed of African-American Blackness, American Blackness, however you want to say it. But I also didn't want her, which I've seen a lot of biracial kids, is to try too hard to be Black, when that's really, you're an imposter and that's really not your culture. It's more that in her, and she's struck the right balance so far.
Anyone else want to chime in on that?
I do. I'd like to add to that. I think social environment plays a huge role in it too. I mean, if you're in a family, where everyone's relatively educated and somewhat well off, that's going to be somewhat different. That environment and that experience will be somewhat different than someone who's less, affluent and growing up poor in the hood. But oddly enough, that there's no guarantee that just because you grew up in an affluent neighborhood that you're going to be any less, your life is going to be any less easier or harder. I think with, the expectation is always that, if you come from the hood, it's going to be hard. But that's not always the case, and I think that, I've tried to raise my kids to not necessarily take that opinion that just because you're from the hood, that life, that you're going to be singled out by law enforcement, or, that you, I don't really buy into that notion. I just think, that home environment is really critical. I think, your emotional intelligence plays a huge role in it. And I think that's pretty much all I can add to it.
So BMAC, I want to jump in and kind of get an answer from you on this, given the fact that when you adopted your son, he was a young, sprawling teenager. And I know that you really jumped in there to really make sure that the type of schools that he went to, and that his representation as a Black male would not kind of fit into some of those stereotypical environments that sometimes we could find ourselves, environments that could kind of pull us into. Can you just speak a little bit about, for you, if there was any type of distinction that you had to do with raising kind of the sprawling young Black kid?
Yeah, sprawling he is too. Very sprawl. I mean, so sprawling that, I'll take that in a couple of different layers, right? First was, when he first started going out with girls, I spent a lot of time giving him popcorn money and talking about, opening doors, getting the girl home, trying to create an environment where he's looking and respecting Black women, in a very focused and strategic way. I think, we used to hang out. It's easy, you can roll around being single and act crazy, but you have to deliver a core to young Black people.
You don't have to bring that up. Anyway,
I'm saying that Ahmad, how bad things can get. But I think part of my job, and back to what Armand was saying, was protecting your child, but also, that's part of the story of creating a base at a young age of respect. And then also that fine line, I'm pulling him out of school, putting him in new schools, and having him understand what it means to be a brother in a different environment. And it goes beyond just police, right? It goes on the mental fortitude that you have to build for your Black kids to be able to navigate America and the nuances of racial aggression, microaggressions. It goes long beyond interaction with police. I think I'm concerned about his mental welfare. His mental health is what I work harder on. And we've had the talk with the police, and like, dude, the stands down, give us a call. That's less of a concern for me. It is physically, but mentally, I'm more worried about the nuance of the teacher who didn't understand the Black kid, or the subtleties of work and stuff that's going to, you know what I mean? Wow. So you understand that combo. I don't need to go further than that, but that's where, and it's hard. You want your kid to grab the world like it's your oyster, but you also say, well, while you're out there, be careful of this too, right? And you don't want to put too much of a lens. You don't want to project too much of a lens from our side. I think our generation has probably had it harder than our kids in terms of hits in that arena. So I want to temper it, because I don't want to give him my baggage, but give him the tools, because it's real, right? So.
So we don't want to hold you brothers too long, because I think we're going on the last couple of minutes here. But Bill, and I know you may have a couple of questions. But I just want to just ask you guys. So, what about your own well-being and self-care? Do you what do you do in the midst of the world that we live in, and the media and the images of Black men sometimes being more negative, and just being a father, trying to be the best human you could be as a father. What do you do for your own sense of self-care in this world?
Let me speak a little bit on that. I think and you guys can obviously, I would suggest and even recommend that you do it. Every once in a while, I'll ask my kids, name me 3 positive things that I'm doing as a father, as a parent. And, as well as go ask your mom, and then give me 3 negative things. And you'll be amazed at what you'll get, every so many months when you ask that question, or every once a year, however often you do it. But, it's better than going into the mirror and patting yourself on the back and saying, yep, I'm doing this thing. I think it's up to you, man, to just get that real self, check and ask those questions. And I think that kind of puts it into perspective as how you're doing, and try to address it and move on and adapt and do better. So for me, I don't know if that answers the question, but I think, from being a father, it starts at home within these 4 walls, and how do you assess yourself, and how do you adapt and improve, or keep it the same, keep it moving.
So KO, man, I know your sons, man. You got some good boys, man. Them some tight young
Thanks,
brothers.
man. Yeah, thanks, Bill.
So, I have to give you your props, man, because I know it's not easy raising kids. Why don't you share with us, man, maybe one of the things, if you feel comfortable doing it, one of the things that they said that was good, and maybe one of the things that was not so good, if you feel up to it.
Yeah. So, I give you a couple examples. During the pandemic, in like the first 3 or 4 months, my oldest runs downstairs. He's 16. At the time, he was 15. And he says, "Hey, Dad," he says, "Man, things seem to be moving quite fast inside this home. Everybody's excited. We're all happy. But at the same time, outside, people are dying. People are suffering." I said, "Man, you just said 2 profound things right there. First, you gave me kudos, your mom and I, in terms of what we're doing inside that's keeping you guys happy and moving. But at the same time, from a spiritual standpoint, you're getting out of your own way and thinking about others. And that's something that, I commend you on." But one of the things, when I asked that question, to your point about the positive things and the negative things, one time he came in and he said, "Hey, Dad, the one time when I came into the house from school, you said, go clean the kitchen. And you just jumped right on me. You didn't even give me a chance to, blah, blah, blah. But yet Caleb has been, my youngest name is Caleb, and he's 11. He's been here for, a few hours. Caleb's been here for 2 hours. Why didn't you get him to do it?" And I said, "I'm glad you brought that up. If you understand, your chore is to clean the kitchen. It ain't for Caleb to do. So self-check, dude, you should be cleaning." "Oh, yeah, you're right.
So put both them little Negroes to work, right?
But, and one of the other things, I do a lot of texting from time. We all got friends. We all got people we associate with. I play a lot of golf. And sometimes I got to, ask my wife, am I playing too much? I ask my brothers, I got a board of directors, my good friends who are in my circle. We all do self-checks and say, "Hey, man, you may be doing a little bit too much golf and not spending a little bit, more time with your kids." So that's being that physical father in the house, but yet not being a father as you should be. But one of the things that my son pointed out one time we were watching a basketball game, he's like, "Dad, you got your head down and you're texting all the time. Why can't you just watch the game with me?" And man, it took me back. You don't realize what your kids are paying attention to. And when he did that, I say, "You make a valid point." I say, "Yeah, I'll put this phone aside. We'll watch the game together and we'll talk about the game." So those are opportunities where I kind of like, okay, your kids, man, they're smarter than you. We learn from our kids, man. And if you listen to them, you learn very quickly that you can also do a little bit better in terms of being a parent and being a father. So yeah, that's one of the things that.
Just a couple more. A couple of people want to chime in on self-care.
I'll say Sunday mornings are Daddy's time for himself. So the kids know that I get up early. I'm out of the house by 6 and I'm on a hike, and I get home anywhere from 10 to noon. And so, yeah, like, I mean, that's really important. I regularly go to therapy. I meditate, you know, and I mean, I guess what I will say, I appreciate the question because, you know, it's hard being the father that I want to. We gotta.
Michael, I'm sorry to cut you off. Can you run that back? We lost the last 10 seconds of that.
So just talking about my own challenge with mental health and post-pandemic, my psyche basically said, brother, I need to break down. Like, you know, and so I went through a real period of anxiety and depression because of just everything that was going on, and, you know, providing for my kids and trying to keep them straight during this pandemic. And so what I've learned through that is that the self-care that I had pre-pandemic was not enough. Like, I needed to up level my game, both just to deal with the pandemic, but also Bill knows, you know, I'm trying to start a new business, and it just wasn't enough. And so that was my psyche basically saying, brother, up your game, because you will not be able to perform and contribute to the world in the way that you need to, and your family. So I had to take it a lot more seriously.
Mike, I want to just say, man, I really appreciate your transparency on here, man. It goes without saying that we wanted this to be an environment where brothers could just be open and honest, because that's probably why, you know, I know you, man. You are a real transparent cat, and you're very open and honest about what's going on. And for the brothers in the room that don't know, man, this brother, Michael, has an MD and a PhD. You know, and I've always respected the fact that he's not one of these brothers that runs around trying to throw his credentials in people's face, but he's always just been a cat that's been very just honest and open about where he is and what he's trying to do. So Michael, thank you, man. Because you know the hard thing is, hold on, the hard thing is sometimes is talking about life's failures and in life, because all of us, man, you know, every brother on here I know has done amazing things, but the hard time is when you fail, and you fail hard, and sometimes you fall flat on your face. You know, there was a poem by Rudyard Kipling, and you brothers probably heard it, called If. And one of the things it says is you got to treat triumph and disaster both the same, because they're both imposters. So Mike, thank you, brother, for that.
No, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for getting us together. This is
There's
soul nourishing, man. Soul food.
Hey, Ahmad, I'm gonna do a quick commercial, man. Me and Ahmad, we've been rapping about doing an in real life event next summer where we can create an environment to have like these real discussions in some type of in real life forum, like a retreat, where we can get Black men together to have these open and honest conversations that are relevant
and have workshops
to just us. Yeah, and for the hoopers, for the OG hoopers, we might even have a basketball court. So Mike, bring your medical equipment for all the brothers that might be getting torn ligaments and ACLs.
You ain't speaking about me.
Just started hurting the game.
Thanks, Dollar Bill. So I have one last question for me, man, that I'm just interested in. So do you guys all think, man, that you get your due, man, on Father's Day, man? Or you just get that ugly ass tie?
I
get the big piece of chicken. As Chris Rock said.
I get the ultimate gift. I get left alone. So I love it.
And what was the question?
My gift ain't coming from my kids. I just put it like that to keep it clean.
do you brothers feel like you get your due on Father's Day, or, you know, Because usually, man, it's that fake ass tie, and then everyone leaves after breakfast, and you know,
or the big piece of chicken.
right.
I miss
Anyhow.
when my kids when my kids were young. Father's Day had a lot more meaning to it. All my kids are adults now, and it's a different dynamic altogether. But I still get the phone call, and I still get the 15, 20-minute conversation, and I love you, dads, and you know, you're not such a bad dad after all.
There you go.
Can I just say one last thing though?
Because all my gifts are golf. All my gifts are golf related.
Oh, that's my kind of gift, brother. I like it. Love it.
And there's no. I taught my daughter how to drive. She was driving on a golf cart. I was like, "What do you want to do?" She's like, "I want to go drive a golf cart." Sold. Let's go.
Armand, what were you gonna say?
I just want to end with that piece, that self-care piece. You know, I love my God walk every morning, good hour and a half. Gives me time to kind of separate and go inward. I think it's important to do that and take care of oneself. But then too, I think on the follow-up conversation, love to really talk about the whole mental health piece. You know, because I think that's something that we tend to overlook. You know, we take on so much, man. We really do as Black men, as Black fathers. You know, we take on a monumental amount of stress and anxiety, and I'd love it for us to get to a point where we can start dealing with that. You know, because you know, life is short. Many of us, you know, are looking at a horizon line. You know, and let's face it. Let's get the most out of it before we get there. So, you know, we've done so much to take care of these children. You know, I'd love it for us to, you know, to be able to have that time where we can really take really, really good care of ourselves.
So, Mike, you see why I asked you, man, if you can help connect us with some mental health professionals, because this is one of the things Ahmad and we've been talking about doing next, is we want to do a forum about mental health for Black men. Yeah. Hey, I want to just say this, Ahmad, in closing, man. Again, man, these are some bad brothers. I am so glad we did this, man. This will be the first of many. I guess as we close out, man, because I'm looking at, we almost going on 2 hours. How about we just close out with each brother just give a nugget, you know, with that one solid piece of advice that you would want to give to maybe like a 20 or 30-year-old, a younger Black father. Just drop some nuggets, man. And I think, Ahmad, unless you've got something else, man, maybe that's how we close it out.
What I could do, I just want to add this, because as I'm looking at this, man, I'm seeing such a wide range of folks here, man. And I know Bill and I, we wanted to kind of stay away from, you know, well, you know, this is what I do and all this stuff. But I think as you give that advice, man, I mean, I want you guys to kind of talk, I mean, not talk, but just mention, you know, your sector or anything kind of related to that, so we could really have our audience see the broad range that you guys all represent as well. So with that, anyone, go for
it. Ahmad, you mean a sector? I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, like Barry, you're in finance. That's a sector, you know. Okay. You're an investor, all that stuff. So anything you want to share, but we just want to kind of show a kind of a kaleidoscope of just the various type of men that we have on here. We didn't want to start with that because we didn't want that to fully kind of define this engagement. But now, as I'm kind of like looking here, you know, you guys all come from so many different spectrums, and I think that's the beauty of this conversation as well. So anyway.
Got it.
Yeah, I can start off. Again,
I can Kevin. I'll go quick. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. So I'm in the engineering space, 24 years and counting. And the one bit of advice I would give, and it's one that I would take from my twin brother, in fact, and he's in California. And that's to surround yourself with what he would call a board of directors. So good brothers, single brothers, married brothers, brothers who father without a wife, brothers who father just on their own, whatever it may be, because we all come from a different background, and we're all in this situation in a different way in terms of being a father. But when you do that, you can live and learn from each and every one of those folks on your board of directors, where you can grow from it, you can build upon it. I got a guy I know right now, and I try to keep it short. Where he's divorced, he's a father, but yet because he's seeing his daughter every 2 weeks, he goes hard in the paint in terms of what he does for that, and it pulls me out of my house with my kids to go along with him, where I don't know if I would otherwise do as much as I do with my kids because of him. So I mean, that's the perfect example of being a father, not only inside the house but outside the house. But I would just share, just surround yourself. The brother that's 20 or 30 years old, when you become a father, surround yourself with other men who are doing the same thing but doing it in a different way, and that's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
John? Jonathan?
So we're doing the kind of like brief summary of our background.
Yeah, summary and just your advice that you would kind of give. What would you depart with, real quickly?
Okay, but so first I want to piggyback on what Kevin said to the young men, especially if you're a father, is the fatherhood life. A lot of guys, as soon as their relationship or their marriage breaks down, they think that automatically includes that their fatherhood part is broken down, and that's not the case. So always stay focused that you're always a father. If you're divorced, right, whatever, you're still a father, always. So as far as what I'm doing now, I do like reentry sort of work, do web design, web development, digital marketing, and using guys that were incarcerated that have coding skills that can't get jobs and can't get any work to build a portfolio. So I just finishing up a project with the National Science Foundation, and two of the guys, three were incarcerated. One guy just got out a while back to work, and he was in jail. He was in prison for 25 years, and he's helped me out with coding, and then now he's doing some Python. So just that work I'm doing right now. Oh, I want to say about healthcare, health, taking care of yourself. Like, I think that's really important. That's why I want to reiterate. My day starts with self-care. It doesn't start with me opening a laptop. So I don't get to laptop until about maybe 12, then I'll work into the evening. But I start with my breathing exercise, my workout, and my diet. And that's how I start my day every day.
And you're looking good, brother. Good to hear. Brother Michael.
See now. Yeah, I was pissed off. People talking about Bill needs a haircut. Man, I would give anything for a jacked up fro.
Oh.
I love it. Love it. Thank you, brother. Brother Michael.
So I'm in healthcare, as Brother Bill mentioned. I've worked in biotech, an aspiring venture capital investor. But man, I've been doing diversity and inclusion consulting and health equity innovation consulting. And I mean, I guess I just feel so grateful to be, like, I want to leave this earth fully used up. That's my goal. And so I'm just grateful that I can contribute. And I guess what I would say to the 20 or 30-year-old brother is, I mean, life is such a gift. And, I think it was Armand that was just talking about the pressure that we put on ourselves as Black men. And I know, I've dealt with that. And so the idea of taking the pressure off of ourselves and simply challenging ourselves to learn from every experience, I think takes at least some of the pressure away, right? Like life is not pressure free, but I think if you focus on what you can learn from each experience, and there's a lot of wisdom here today, it'll put you in good stead. So I really appreciate y'all.
It's good to have you here, brother. Brother Herman.
So I work as a fatherhood advocate, fatherhood specialist. I'm also a sports psychology consultant. So I'm actually trying to bridge both disciplines together. I think a lot of the athletes could benefit from some of the specialization that I work with. But I think the nugget that I would probably like to just leave is the fact that this whole process goes quick. It's fast. Embrace every day. Not about everything's gonna be perfect, but just be intentional and be mindful of every day. And I think as a father, to deal with your kids like that, just be mindful.
Brother, thank you. Brother B. Mag.
My background's in investment banking, finance. So perspective, I do juggle a lot with my time. I would say for advice is just get in the game, get wet, get dirty. You don't have to be perfect. Everything you do is not always gonna be right. Just show up to the game and kind of figure it out, right? Just like any kind of game, you take what the defense gives you, you figure it out, but you got to get on the field, right? And you don't have to be, everything doesn't have to be just right, don't get on yourself. If something's wrong or you came at it wrong, that's all right. Just be present. And I find that typically things kind of work out. You learn it as long as you get in there.
I definitely believe that is something to follow in your fatherhood, but I've seen your defense in basketball, bro. And I'm not sure necessarily whether that adds up.
But I'm on the court. I'm on the court.
You're on the court. You're on the court.
I'm on the court.
You are on the court, brother. No doubt. No doubt. I'm sure fatherhood plays. I'm sure you're very successful in that in fatherhood, man. So
all the time. Appreciate it all the time.
Oh man,
brother Armand.
Armand, let's see. I'm in construction. I'm a general contractor. And an entrepreneur. I've been running my own shop for about 16 years now. Mostly residential. And right now transitioning into doing development work. The advice I'd like to give my younger self, Vera, thank you for the football metaphor because it helps me. The advice that I'd like to give myself is, my younger or 20-year-old would be, you're gonna fall down, just accept that. I can't remember who said it, but maybe it was Vera or Kevin, one of you said. But the important thing is to bounce back, is to get back up. And I pride myself on being a bounce back king. And the other thing I would say, you really do have to be patient. And here comes the football metaphor. You want to be patient, but you always got to be moving the chains. And, got to be moving the chains forward, and not backwards. So I would say, you're going to get hit, you're going to get knocked down. Being a father is one of the greatest gifts God has ever given mankind. And I think as long as you can just stay true to, there's a purpose for us all being here, however, being a father is beyond just like, I think someone was saying the physical act of procreation. It's more about that spirit and being able to reach deep inside yourself and be able to, like Jeter said, just be a good steward, a good shepherd, if you will. So bounce back and move the chains is what I would tell them.
Like that.
Great. Well, I want to thank each and one of you for just coming on here and not only just dropping wisdom and bringing your full selves here, but really just providing just a kind of, I can feel your spirits coming off the screen here. And I think Bill said it best, that this is just one of many forums that we want to have on a wide range of things, but we felt that fatherhood was just a great starting place. And I just want to thank each and one of you for coming on. And we also just look forward to working with you in some capacity as well. So thank you, brothers. And I'll let Bill kind of finish us up here.
Hey, man. Ahmad knows I always like to end out our broadcast, man, with some lyrics to a song, man, that we probably all remember from our day, man. So I'll just say, man, it's just coming strong. McFadden and Whitehead, ain't no stopping us now. We on the move. So, hey, man, on that note, I just want to thank all you